Welcome to the Man of Recaps. We're talking House of Cards Season 1. Meet Frank Underwood. He's a congressman. They're celebrating the election of the new President Walker. Now, Frank's a pretty nice guy. His hobbies include eating ribs, playing Call of Duty, and strangling dogs that have been hit by cars to put them out of their misery. Frank had a deal with the new president to make him Secretary of State, but his Chief of Staff Linda says, "Sorry, deal's off. We need you in Congress." Frank's like, "Okay, I'll play nice for now," but he has a secret smoke meeting with his wife, Claire Underwood, and he's like, "We're going to destroy them." And Claire's like, "All right, that's what I like to hear." So the plot is afoot. Now meet Zoe Barnes. She's a stereotypical young reporter who wants to break some real stories. One day she goes to the opera wearing a thong and catches this unfortunate picture of Frank, uses it to blackmail him. She's like, "I just want a source inside Washington to feed me cool stories." And Frank's like, I think I can help you out. The first item on the president's agenda is an education reform bill. As majority whip, Frank's job is to oversee it, make sure it passes Congress. The guy they have writing it, though, Donald Blythe, is very liberal, so the first draft of the bill completely unusable. But Frank's chief of staff, Douglas Stamper, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. Frank sends him to the dumpster to pull out the bill, and he gives it to Zoe Barnes, who then prints it. So when the president's inaugurated, immediately the article comes out that his education bill is terrible, undermining his presidency. So Donald Blythe is off the bill. Frank's in charge now, but of course he gives it to some interns to write because he has more important things to do, like taking down the actual Secretary of State nominee, Michael Kern. Doug digs into his past and finds an article from his college paper where he was an editor that's very anti-Israel, but they need someone else to go investigate further. And that guy is Junior Congressman Peter Russo. Peter's not a very good congressman. He hasn't done much except for have an affair with his secretary. In fact, it's more than an affair. They are boyfriend and girlfriend. He does like, though, driving drunk around with prostitutes. That's his hobby. So Doug pulls some strings and gets him out of jail. And Frank's like, "Hey, you're welcome, but now I own you." And Peter's like, "What?" And he's like, "I own you." So when the call comes in the middle of the night, Peter has no choice but to go. They're sending him to meet with the guy who wrote the article. He's living in a trailer now, kind of a crazy dude. And he says, "No, Michael Kern had nothing to do with the article. I wrote it all myself." And he's like, "Would you say he did if I give you this fat joint?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can work with that." So when the story breaks, Michael Kern freezes up. He has no idea what to say, and basically he's not going to be Secretary of State anymore. But Frank doesn't want Secretary of State. He's got a much bigger plan. He tells Zoe to print that it's going to be Frank's longtime political ally, Kathy Durant. And because Zoe prints it, it becomes true. Zoe, by the way, doing a lot of TV now. She's breaking good stories, and she's super hot. Her boss, Hammerschmidt, doesn't like that he can't control her anymore, so when she defies his orders, he calls her a very bad word, which she then tweets out to the world, so she's totally fired, but it's okay. She gets a better job anyway at a cool online newspaper. Around this time, Frank gets a side quest from his home district in South Carolina. Some teenager was killed because she was distracted by the giant peach statue that kind of looks like a dick. Now this is being sensationalized by Frank's longtime rival, so Frank has to work some local politics, get the grieving family on his side, and it's not relevant to the story, but he shuts this guy down hard. Frank's college also names a new library after him. He meets up with his old a cappella buddies, and they have a wild drunken night where it's heavily implied that he had a gay relationship with one of them back in college, so that's interesting. Back to business though, the education bill is ready, and Frank's trying to get it passed, but the Speaker of the House, Bob Birch, is holding out. So Frank has to enlist Terry Womack, the leader of the Black Caucus, who says he's definitely down to support it if he can keep his naval base open in his home district. Luckily, there's a naval base that can close instead in Peter Russo's home district. Frank tells him to close it, and Pete's like, "That was my entire campaign platform, was keeping it open." And Frank's like, "I know, that's a shame." So when the hearing happens, Pete's like, "I guess you can close it," and he goes on a drinking binge because he's very depressed. Now meet Remy Danton. He's a high-powered lobbyist for a huge natural gas corporation. He actually used to work with Frank back in the day as his campaign manager. Now, in case you're unfamiliar with the US political system, lobbyists represent corporate interests to politicians. Basically, the corporations donate lots of money to their campaigns, and the lobbyists go and make sure that the politicians are doing what the corporations want. It's a weird system, but it's what we've got. Anyway, Remy and Frank had a deal where when he became Secretary of State, he was going to open drilling rights somewhere, and in exchange, his company was going to donate lots of money to Frank's wife Claire's natural clean water campaign. But since it didn't happen, Claire had to fire all of her employees. Frank gets the new Secretary of State, Kathy Durant, to hold up the deal, so the money's back on, but Frank has Claire turn it down because he doesn't want to be beholden to anyone right now. So to raise money, Claire has a big fundraiser, but it's being protested by the teachers union because Frank screwed them on the education bill. They shut the protest down pretty quickly though by feeding them. Zoe Barnes comes to the fundraiser, and in case you were wondering, yes, their relationship did get sexual. It's no secret affair though. Claire and Frank share everything, so we told her immediately, and she's like, "Oh, if you get this nice piece on the side, I'm going to reconnect with my hot photographer friend and go on like a week-long sex bender." But anyway, Anyway, the teachers are on strike now, and one night a brick is thrown through Frank's window. They want to fire Frank's security guard Edward Meacham, but Frank offers to keep him on in exchange for his unwavering loyalty. But the brick is very bad press for the teachers, so their rep meets with Frank, and Frank confesses he had Doug throw the brick, and then he basically tells the guy to lick my balls, so the guy punches him in the face, and now he's assaulted a U.S. congressman, so he has no choice but to end the strike, and the bill gets signed, and Frank gets all the credit. Now the Democrats need a candidate for governor of Pennsylvania because the current vice president held that position, and Frank thinks it should be his puppet Peter Russo. But Pete's pretty pissed at him right now about the whole shipyard closing thing, and he comes to his house one day to tell him off, so Frank gives him a bath and a razor to slit his wrists, and he's like, look, kill yourself or be governor of Pennsylvania. It's your call. Russo decides to run for governor. The plan is to confess to being an alcoholic, but sweep the cocaine and hookers under the rug. The problem is the people of Pennsylvania hate him because he closed their shipyard and they're all out of work, so he has to go true Pennsylvania style and fight his best friend and meet everyone at a sports bar, so now they all sort of support him again. So he's working on a bill with Claire to do a clean water initiative that'll bring a lot of jobs to the area. The problem is Remy Danton and the National Gas Company pay off everyone to not support the bill. Frank intimidates enough people to get the votes, but Claire has some water filters or something stuck overseas, and Kathy can't help, so she goes to Remy, who's like, yeah, my company can help, but we need you to kill the clean water bill. So Claire goes behind Frank's back to get some guys to oppose her own bill, and when it doesn't pass, Frank is pissed. But he's a flexible guy, so he pivots. Instead of going for clean water, it's time to go for drilling. He sets him up with Remy, who's like, yeah, we'll give you all the money you need, you'll be governor for sure, and Russo's like, I should have just done this in the first place. Just then, hot chick shows up. It's Rachel, the prostitute he was caught with at the beginning of the season. Doug Stamper tracked her down and paid her to keep her mouth shut, but they've stayed in touch, and he kind of likes her, so he set her up in an apartment, and they have a weird sugar daddy, like father-daughter, but he likes her sexually thing going on. So Doug has her seduce Peter Russo and get him to start drinking again. He's like, well, I guess one won't hurt. Oh my god, it's morning. He has an important radio interview that morning where he is still very obviously drunk, and his campaign is now over. So Peter goes on his biggest bender yet. He wants to confess to everything, so Frank's like, you know what, confess in the morning, just drink yourself to sleep for now. And he does, and Frank wipes down his fingerprints and starts the engine and closes the garage door on him. What? If you don't know, that's a way people kill themselves with the fumes, carbon monoxide poisoning, so Frank just killed a guy! We knew he was ruthless, but now he's murdered. The final part of Frank's plan is to convince the current vice president to step down and run for governor of Pennsylvania again. This is sort of crazy, but the election's really close and they don't have any better options, so they go along with it. Now Frank wants to be vice president, but the president has another guy in mind. It's the billionaire business tycoon Raymond Tusk. Frank goes down to vet him, but Tusk confesses that he's actually a close friend and confidant of the president's, and he's there to vet Frank. He offers to make Frank vice president, and then Frank will owe him. And Frank's like, I don't owe people, people owe me, so he turns him down. Now, somewhere along the line, Zoe decided to end her affair with Frank. She actually starts seeing her other reporter friend, Lucas Goodwin, and another reporter is looking into Frank's corruption and sort of tells Zoe, yo, I think Frank is the bad guy. The three of them start connecting the dots, and they manage to track down Rachel. Rachel keeps her mouth shut, though, because she's friends with and or scared of Doug. Meanwhile, Frank enlists Remy's help to take down Tusk, but Remy starts to work for him instead because he can pay a lot of money. So he arranges the secret meeting with Tusk in the barbecue joint, and Tusk's like, hey, you ready to be vice president yet and owe me? And Frank's like, no, but you're gonna make me vice president anyway because you don't have any other choice. So Frank Underwood lied, cheated, and killed his way into the vice presidency, and that's how season 1 comes to an end. Thanks for watching the Man of Recaps. Stay tuned for House of Cards Season 2, and check out my other cool videos for even more sweet recap action.